that the Muses, including Phoebus, who is identified for you in the margin, have given Donne so much brains that there's none left over for anyone else. I was born in the middle of Manchester, about 2 miles from Manchester United's football ground. And I think when I was in primary school, and World War II had recently broken out, we had a male teacher called Mr. Dunn, D-U-N-N, who went off to the war. He was in the Royal Air Force and was lost over France at the time when the Nazis were overrunning France, along with all the countries they did overrun in Europe. And this was announced at school that Mr. Dunn has given up his life for his country in a Royal Air Force plane. And I thought back profoundly on that. I took Tolkien's medieval romances course, and it was clear that he knew everything about them. I knew very little about them. And Lewis, who was a much more impressive public personality, and in a classroom, he was more dominant in the way teachers are supposed to be, or used to be supposed to be. Nowadays, of course, you're supposed to be everybody's friend, which is a great mistake, because some of the students you would not want to have as a friend. But aside from that, their personalities were strong, well-defined, magnificently steeped in the subjects that they were talking about. Suddenly impressed a 19-year-old if teachers of this caliber have taken this much interest in their subjects might be actually worth studying. I can only really think of one teacher whom I regard as an absolute disgrace to the profession, and that was a tutor at Oxford. And this man somehow managed to project a negative attitude, so the moment you walked into his room, a sort of atmosphere of, do I really have to bother with you, was somehow transmitted to you. If you aren't devoted to your subject, whether it be physics, English, or anything else, you shouldn't be up in front of a group of young people trying to persuade them that the subject is worth studying. A friend of mine at Oxford, who wanted to spend the Christmas vacation up in Yorkshire visiting his fiancée in York and his Canadian cousin, he asked me if I would go down and stay for a while at his home in Kent. And I said, well, I'm not doing anything particular, so I'm perfectly happy to do that. And I knew from the first evening that I met his cousin that she was going to be an extremely influential person in my life. So it developed from there, so that when I graduated from Oxford, which was about 6 months later, I'd already arranged to emigrate to Canada. We got engaged, and I returned to Canada with her, and we subsequently got married at her home in Northern Ontario. She died at the age of 47 of an autoimmune disease, which she bore with the courage and the grace which I had long recognized in her, but it was an absolute disaster as far as I was concerned for her, for me and our 3 sons, because she was the kind of person who enhances life, and of whom we need a lot more than are readily available. Without my directly applying to UNC for a job, a couple of professors I knew at UNC, because I had taken a graduate seminar over at Chapel Hill, one of them got in touch with me and said, have you thought of applying to teach at UNC? So it seemed very agreeable. We already knew quite a bit about Chapel Hill, of course, and the university. So I was glad to accept an assistant professorship in 1967 and stayed and stayed and stayed, getting promoted occasionally. And so I've now been on the faculty in UNC for 50 years. I've had some exceptionally fine students, and I have elsewhere too. I mean, intelligence and stupidity know no national frontiers. Pick your country and you'll find some bright people and some stupid people.